Hello world, my name is Amelia and welcome to day one of the quarantine here in Kansas City, or stay-at-home order, as they say. I can't tell you how much I wish and hope that people are actually taking this thing seriously now. However, apparently I don't get to be the lucky ones to get to stay home because I work in a hardware store. Let's hope that really changes soon because, yeah, this is a really upsetting situation. But anyways, I am broadcasting from my quarantine bunker here in my home while I have these time off. And I thought it would be important for me to finally get back to a topic I have been wanting to talk about for a very long time now. And so growing up, I grew up Christian. I still to this day consider myself a very devout Christian. I like to tell people that I am what I like to call a revivalist. The reason that is I'm not going to go really into, I grew up in the revivals of the 90s, and I still go to a church that's very much in the flow of revival. It's not exactly, kind of hard to explain. Beyond the scope of this video. Point is something that I always heard growing up is the whole thing about separation of church and state. And of course everybody has opinions about that. Everybody has their own little ideas what that should look like. And of course I do have some opinions of my own. But that's not the point of this video. The point of this video, I actually, as you can see from the title that I very likely put on this video, is I actually have more of a separation of church and the LGBT. Because particularly in opinion, some people can't quite understand why I go to a church that isn't exactly affirming as me as a transgender woman. I go to a church to basically, they are not discriminative towards me. They more than welcome me into the events. I'm welcome to come to any special events that go on, you know, the worship group. And matter of fact, quite a few of the people I know there who have known the old me, him, who's long gone by now, are, you know, very affirmative of me. They really, there has been a lot of massive change. I came out 15 months ago. Well, I started 15 months ago. I came out in my church roughly about a year ago now. And ever since then, it has quite been amazing the response I have gotten out of some of the people at my church. The church as a whole does not affirm me. I still am dealing a little bit with the struggle of the bathroom issue, which I am really hoping to be able to focus more on that coming in the upcoming months. Again, beyond what I really want to talk about in this video, I mean, they do have some precautionary things that and I guess bathroom, you could say, is one of those issues at my church, where they're not exactly telling me no, they just, let's just say we're at a ceasefire about it. So a lot of people can't quite understand why I'm okay going to a church like that. I've had a lot of people that always kept telling me, they're like, well, you should go to so-and-so church down the road. You should go to this church across town because they accept gay people or they have a gay pastor. And while I think, I understand why people are suggesting I do that, because, like, for example, prior to me coming out, I served in the children's ministry at my church. It was probably one of my favorite areas ever to be able to serve in a church. I think it's just something in my family. I think practically everyone in my family has served in children's ministry, but it was something I've done from a very young age, and I've always enjoyed working with kids. I don't know, probably has a little bit something to do with my fact that I do want to be a mother one day. But that was something that soon came to an end because, like I said, they were taking precautionary measures when I came out. They were just like, I'm not really sure about that. But a lot of people have told me, they're like, well, go to this church across town because they have no problem with a trans woman being a teacher or helping in the children's ministry. And well, I definitely want to see that become the norm in the future. I think that really should become the norm as time goes on. I personally have reservations about, I just have some issues with going to a church that's that easygoing about LGBT acceptance within the church. Not to say that it's not right, it's just more to say I'm uncomfortable with the way that a lot of churches treat the LGBT issue. And I really hope that I can get my point across on what I actually mean when I say this. So if anybody ever knows what I'm talking about, there is that kind of pictures you've seen of, like, what was it, the one denomination when the main denomination came out and said, oh, we do not support LGBT people, and then one of the local churches said, well, we're going against what the main church said, and they painted their stairways with a rainbow and put up all the gay flags, and they were like, you are welcome here. And I personally, while I do feel that a church should be reaching out to the LGBT community, something that I definitely want to be doing myself, the problem is that churches become, in a lot of cases, begin to become narrow focused on LGBT issues, to the point that it then becomes greater than God, becomes greater than the church. And boy, is this probably going to be the most religious video I've done yet. It's something I try to avoid here on YouTube, unfortunately. Unfortunately. And anyways, point is, I have personally gone to some of these affirming churches, and one of the things that I typically notice when I go to these churches is that they are so focused on these issues that now there's almost no God. There's no God in the church. Now they are basically an LGBT center. They're basically a bunch of cishet people that are there to hang out with a bunch of LGBT people, and there's just sing a bunch of hymns together. Not to say, we're not going to touch that. So the point is that I believe that there needs to be a healthy level of separation of the church from the LGBT. Again, you can be affirming of it. It's kind of like the government allowing freedom of religion. It's like the government being supportive of religion in the country, not suppressing it. It's the equivalent of a church saying, hey, we are supportive of you being trans. We are supportive of you being gay. They're not suppressive. That would be similar to the separation of church and state. I see a church, and that's why, honestly, I do keep going to the church that I have been going to, is because something that I have said to the church leaders at my church and to other people that have honestly asked me, why do you keep going to this church? I say it's because there has been those who have come before me, both trans and gay people who have come out in the past in my church. And one of the sad things is every time they've come out and then they are not accepted, they turn around and they do exactly what people have tried to suggest to me. They're like, well, you should just go to the church down the road. You should leave and do this. Or in some strange cases, they confess of being LGBT, and honestly, they confess of it and say that they are healed, which that's a whole nother topic I will not touch right now. And and I do believe some of them are genuine. Other ones probably not quite so much, because the whole mental thing that goes on when you're trans is quite complicated, as we know from the last 50 years of experience. But just in general, these people do this and then they leave. They go somewhere else. And I remember a message by my pastor a couple years ago where he was talking about people who end up just leaving the church, and then the people within the church then sit there and then gloat that, well, we were right. A lot of times the people in that church then say, well, we were right. The fact that they just left like that means we were right and they were wrong. And that's not how, as a Christian, we should be seeing the issue. That's not how we should be believing. When they leave, in my opinion, a lot of times that just means you're not loving. You were not Christ-like to those people. And that's why I still go to this church, because I believe, even though I've had a really rough time with my parents, I had a really rough time in the beginning being accepted by certain people, I just am sticking it out. Because again, they welcome me. I'm allowed to go there. I'm allowed to dress as me, as Amelia. I'm allowed to be there. But it does become a very, it is difficult, and have to talk to people. And again, I've had plenty of people in that church come up to me and they're just like, I love you and I want to know more. They actually, some of them are curious. They actually want to know more about me. That's why it's kind of more about the silent individual. When the church is so supportive of it, it makes a very unhealthy balance between God and outreach elsewhere, and to be doing what churches should be doing. Versus now it just becomes an LGBT community center, in my opinion. And to talk positively about my church, the other day, after, a year of me sticking it out with my church and sticking it out and showing that here's the thing, if they're not going to be a Christian, if they're not going to be Christian towards me, then I need to be Christian towards them. That's what's important here. And talking momentarily here about my own church, if I remain dedicated and showing that I have Christ in my heart and that I am not going to just walk out those doors, that is going to show proof that this is genuine. And the other day, after a whole year of this going on, my pastor actually came into my work and gendered me correctly. A whole year of him occasionally misgendering me, or me not really feeling like I think he was saying, he was witnessing it, and he literally came into my work and said she, pointed at me. It was the most affirming thing that ever happened. And then not to mention, people, like, when I've talked to certain people who are like, I think there are probably more people in this church who support you than you might think. That was something that was told to me by someone I know very well. And there was another person who at my church who back in December came up to me, and I was sitting there involved in the worship of my church, and she literally came up to me, and she had been going there for 15 years, and she comes up and she, put it simply, she apologized for being transphobic. Literally came up to me and said, hey, I just wanted to let you know I'm seeing you participate and I'm seeing you here. You are obviously much more happy. She said, I've met you before, and she literally looked at me and said he was grumpy. He wasn't happy. There was definitely something going on, and I couldn't quite understand him. And now you have come and you are participating and you are happy and you are fluid, and there's just something new about you. And she literally told me, she apologized for being judgmental and to have counted me out. And she talked about how God was changing her heart on this situation. So to kind of I'm digressing here, but the change is coming. I believe very strongly that if I keep going to my church, that this is a change I can enact. I can help with the global acceptance at these churches that I feel really, truly have their hearts in the right place. Not to say that other churches don't have their hearts in the right place, but me personally, being that I'm a revivalist and there's not quite as many churches that have similar views as mine religiously. So anyways, point is, this video's gotten long enough. I just believe that the rainbow-stepped church with the gay flags all over the place, and the pastor might as well be wearing a rainbow-striped shirt during his sermon, is crossing a boundary that should not be there. Or a boundary that should be there but should not be crossed. It's getting into territory that is a little... it becomes delusional, I guess is a word I could use. When you have LGBT people that are going to a church like that, you then they as well as the other people begin to lose focus on what's important, if that's either God or some other kind of outreach. I know a lot of trans people and a lot of gay people, particularly trans people, who when they are in these circles that are way over supportive of them, it's kind of one of the reasons I have a little bit of an issue with safe spaces. I understand the importance of a safe space, But when you have a safe space where it's overly supportive and everybody in that group is so affirming to you, you then lose focus on life. Because the point of transitioning, the point why I'm transitioning is so that I can move on with my life and that I can go get a college degree and that I can go get a job and I can finally be me. I can finally be Amelia. I don't have to be him and day to day be struggling. It's one of the things I noticed recently is as my dysphoria has been shrinking before my eyes, as my life has gotten better over these last several months, I'm starting to realize how void my life really is of other problems. I start having little minor problems pop up and I get these major panic attacks over them, and then I have people look at me like, well, that's not that big of an issue, and then all of a sudden I have to almost like take a seat back and think about it. I'm like, you're right, it really isn't that big of a problem, but I'm turning it into a big problem because my life is so void of everything else. Gender dysphoria filled my life, and that's the thing, when you have these over-affirming spaces and over-affirming churches, now you start, your average trans person starts inner focusing on themselves and their dysphoria's post-recovery. And almost like, well, that's why striving for perfection is not necessarily a bad thing in certain contexts. So anyways, I think I made my point. Does that make sense? I hope. I seem to ask that a lot, almost like I'm unsure of myself. This was definitely an issue I wanted to kind of touch on briefly, and tell me below in the comments if you agree with me or if there's any way to kind of better make that argument. And anyways, I know that some of you have been watching these videos, some of you are new to there. I definitely am interested in continuing to grow my channel and make this into a bigger thing, because I am very much one of those trans people with very unique views on this whole situation. So do not forget to subscribe, follow me on social media, at least comment or like the video and just be like, hey, I think you're an awesome person and you should definitely keep talking. That's the voice in my head. Yes, little voice. Anyways, so I will see everybody next time, and do not forget to stay lovely. And I will see you. Bye.